Welcome to this deep dive on resurrection narratives. Today we're unpacking those stories of the dead walking, not just Jesus, but others too. It's like exploring a hidden layer of history.
Yep, absolutely. It's fascinating. We're looking at accounts of Jairus' daughter, the widow's son at Nain, Lazarus, and then Matthew's account of many saints rising. Mind-blowing stuff.
Right. And it's interesting because while most of us know about Jesus' resurrection, the Gospels actually mention several other instances of resurrection. For example, Mark introduces us to Jairus' daughter and Luke to the widow's son at Nain.
And then there's John with Lazarus, who was dead for 4 days. It adds a whole new dimension to the resurrection narrative, don't you think?
Exactly. But then Matthew completely ups the ante. His account is almost theatrical, imagining the earth quaking, rocks splitting, tombs breaking open, and suddenly a number of saints rising up and walking into Jerusalem.
Right. Yeah, it's almost surreal. When you picture it, it's like hundreds of people who were once dead, just coming back to life in one dramatic moment. It's hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it's wild. And that raises so many questions. For instance, if these resurrected individuals were real, why don't we hear any more about them? Why do their voices vanish from history?
That's a really good point. There's a big mystery there. Some scholars even ask, did they literally come back to life, or could it have been a symbolic vision?
Absolutely. Scholars like R.T. France see Matthew's narrative as a symbolic vision, a cosmic sign that death was defeated when Jesus died.
Yeah, while others, like John Dominic Crossan, argue it's more like a theatrical piece, where the resurrection is demonstrated through a vivid story rather than a historical event.
Yup, exactly. And then you have skeptics like Richard Carrier and Robert Price who think it's a literary echo, a kind of storytelling motif influenced by Greco-Roman myths where divine heroes underscored the triumph of the gods with earthquake-like events.
Right. They point out that such dramatic events, earthquakes, splitting rocks, were common in ancient myths to signal miracle-like happenings across various cultures. It really puts Matthew's account into a broader mythological context.
That's true, but here's something to consider. If we accept that these were literal events, then imagine the implications. Families would have been reunited with loved ones thought gone for good in a spectacular, almost cinematic instant.
Yeah, it's an image almost too powerful to ignore. But then, where's the corroboration? No Roman historian, no early rabbi, nothing outside that singular account in Matthew mentioning these resurrected saints.
Exactly. That selective record-keeping makes you wonder if perhaps the story was more about conveying a message of hope, a statement that through Jesus, death itself was obsolete.
Yep. I see what you mean. But don't you think there's a risk of overstretching the symbolic interpretation? I mean, if we say it's all symbolism, it undercuts the miraculous nature of the resurrection that has inspired so much belief.
That's a valid critique. I mean, if we reduce it to symbolism, we might lose the raw, transformative impact it was meant to have on its original audience. But then again, maybe it was crafted so poetically, like a metaphor for new beginnings, that the literal details were secondary.
Right, it could be a layered narrative. On one level, a literal miracle, and on a deeper level, a message about the defeat of death, both physical and spiritual.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, death is not the end. And considering first-century Judaism had a different idea of resurrection, more about an apocalyptic rising of the righteous rather than individual reanimating, it might have been a way to hint at a larger cosmic shift.
Yes, and that larger shift is crucial. If resurrection meant the beginning of a new order, a new understanding of life itself, then it transforms the entire narrative into a battle between the old world and the new.
Right. It's a kind of cosmic rebellion against the finality of death. But then you wonder, if death truly was defeated 2,000 years ago, why are we still experiencing mortality today?
That's exactly the paradox. And some modern scholars have pointed out that the term resurrection wasn't always meant to indicate a return to physical life. It could well mean a spiritual awakening, or even the inception of an apocalyptic event, like the early hints of an end-of-days prophecy.
Yeah, it's like saying that the death of Jesus tore a hole in the very fabric of time, letting in a glimpse of something much bigger. Whether that was an early apocalypse or a call to rebirth the spirit, it radically shifts our understanding of these texts.
Yep. And what's fascinating is how the gospel writers, no matter which account they give us, seem to shape the message to fit the needs of their audiences. It's like each writer is remixing older myths to highlight victory over oppression, despair, and yes, death.
Exactly. It's a theological remix. One minute you have Jesus as a miracle worker, and the next you have these symbols of a larger, transformative revolution. It's poetry, it's drama, and it definitely stirs the imagination.
I appreciate that perspective. It really opens up the discussion beyond a literal historical event. But let me ask, don't you think too much focus on the metaphorical can sometimes detract from the historical context these texts emerged from?
That's a fair challenge. When we overemphasize the symbolism, we risk losing sight of what might have been actual events experienced by early believers. But then again, those experiences, whether literal or visionary, had a profound impact on the faith and the cultural narrative of that time.
Yeah, sure. And it's not necessarily an either-or situation, right? It can be both, a powerful historical claim and a rich metaphor for overcoming death.
Exactly. And that duality is what makes the resurrection stories so compelling. They're not just about proving a miracle happened, but also about telling us that something deeply hopeful and transformative is possible, even in the face of death.
It's almost like the resurrection narratives serve as a bridge between the temporal world we experience and a more eternal spiritual realm. There's a sense of promise that goes well beyond the physical moment.
Definitely. And that promise, that idea that death isn't final, resonates even today. Think about how many people draw comfort from that message. It's like a beacon of hope in a world that often seems harsh and unpredictable.
Yeah, and yet, it leaves us with so many unanswered questions. If the resurrection was a real, physical event, why don't we have more historical accounts? And if it was metaphorical, what does it say about the way history and myth intertwine to shape our beliefs?
Exactly. It challenges us to rethink not just these texts, but how we understand history, myth, and identity. It's like peeling an endless onion, each layer revealing even more questions.
And perhaps that's the beauty of these ancient narratives. They invite interpretive freedom while still grounding themselves in the realities of human experience, loss, and hope.
Absolutely, and it's that ambiguous, multi-layered quality that has kept these resurrection stories alive in both scholarly debates and personal faith for centuries.
Yes, it really makes you think about what miracles mean, not just as isolated events, but as signposts pointing to a deeper, perhaps universal, truth.
Exactly. It's like the stories themselves are acts of rebellion against the finality of mortal life, each one urging us to imagine a world where love, and maybe a kind of eternal life, is possible.
Yep, and that's a story we all seem to gravitate toward, whether in ancient texts or modern narratives. There's something about defying death that's innately hopeful.
For sure. And discussing these narratives reminds us that every myth and historical account carries layers of meaning, inviting us to explore our own beliefs about life, death, and what might be beyond.
It's been an enlightening conversation. I mean, maybe we won't get all the answers, but questioning these stories only deepens our understanding of the human spirit.
Yes, indeed. And as we wrap up, remember that the beauty of these texts lies in their mystery, challenging us to contemplate that the end of one story may just be the beginning of another.
Right. And for anyone out there, these discussions are as much about inspiring hope as they are about historical curiosity. Thanks for joining this thoughtful exploration.
Thanks for tuning in, and keep questioning, because sometimes the most forbidden knowledge is the one that calls us to see that death is never truly the end.
Yeah,